All right, welcome everyone. This is a regular school board meeting of the Tri-C United School Board. We are located at the TCU High School Media Center. Tonight is Monday, February 13th, and it is 6 p.m. So I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. And we have all present tonight. First up will be our administrative reports. You wanted me to pull up the calendar?
Yeah, why don't you pull that up?
Is it us?
Yep, you guys come up. Jeff, Alan, whoever wants to come up that was part of the calendar committee.
Is it under the board report?
Are we talking calendar or are we doing?
Is there something in here?
It should be.
Gone to the blue library board report.
If I click on, there's nothing there.
No, the link in the middle.
February board report.
What is it
Yes,
in this, or no,
Yeah,
it's
click-
separate?
click on that one. That's not in there.
Okay, all right.
So first thing up is, you guys can stay there if you want. So we have the calendar update, right? So we had a committee of about 18 people that met from the district, including admin, myself, a couple board members, and then some of our teaching staff that are part of the union. Jeff, you can come up here too if you want and be part of that. Sorry, the calendar's not up on the thing. But I did give a copy to everybody to glance over. This is for the 2023-2024 academic school year. With that being said, is based on this calendar, if it gets approved, that committee will be coming back to looking at the next 2 years. So we have a 3-year out front calendar for the district. So we don't have to keep recreating every year. The teams that met, it was really quite, I don't want to say fun, but it was actually fun because we had people that actually were a part of the process that aren't normally part of the process, that really felt invested into looking at it from a teaching standpoint, administrative standpoint, and even from the board side of things. And then thinking quite often about being a part of that process. So there was a lot of thought put into that. The calendar also went out to all the teaching staff. Jeff sent that out with comments coming back. I'll let them start talking a little bit about the process and where we landed with this calendar, and then we'll look at it from there. So I don't know who wants to maybe chat. Jeff, I don't know if you want to come over here so you're on camera or whatever. But we do have quite a few people in the room that were a part of that committee.
Yeah, what I really appreciated was setting the purpose that this is the student and staff calendar. There are admin who get to sit on it too. We report kind of all days of the school year, so really getting perspective from our teachers, board members, really should drive what we view as powerful for student learning. So I really was appreciative of just setting that purpose of this is the calendar that we want to maximize learning and experiences for our kids and teachers. And starting with that really made us like prioritize what we wanted to see in there. So that's something that I was very happy to see in it.
I think what was unique was it was a two-group process. Meaning we used this space here, we also used the e-cafe, so there was dual discussions happening, which a lot of times people don't grasp why that's important, because you can have two completely different conversations and come back together and come with the best possible calendar, best possible thought that can happen. And that's what did happen, so it was a good process.
And the cool part behind that was that both sides seemed to agree. The conversations took in 2 different locations, but came back with the same conclusion, which I thought was a pretty cool thing to see happen.
I think some general themes. We also analyzed other districts' calendars, just not because we need to replicate theirs exactly, but just as we were gathering information about other districts, just to consider how others might be doing things with their calendar. And some themes I would say were just adding in some more meaningful professional development time for teachers. And on that note, I think we all had come to the consensus that early release days really were no longer serving the purpose that we wanted them to in the most effective way. So I think they're not optimal learning for staff, and they're not good learning days for kids a lot of times. And I know they're really disruptive to families, not that a full day off is not, but And so really nobody on the committee was advocating for the early release days, so we pretty much did away with those in our proposal for the benefit of staff and students, but really tried to maximize a little bit more professional development and time for teachers as well.
And Jeff, when the data came back, favorability, if I can say that word right, for the updated calendar was,
Yeah, we saw just as the calendar sat, there was an 80% approval rate of the teachers. With a small tweaks, we were able to easily push that in the 90s. So it was very well accepted by the staff.
It's great.
yeah. So in a sense, really, it's taken some of those 2-hour early outs and spreading out into days where professional development can happen, especially with the way our teaching and learning is trying to accomplish itself across all of our district. So that they have more collaborative time to be able to not only do some professional development, but then to take that into practice so that they can get it ready for classroom setting. So the dynamics of that change so that we have more time to work together as a staff and team. If you look at the calendar that's up there, Brenda, district secretary, was also a huge part of this whole process, which is pretty cool. She actually redesigned the whole calendar. It's actually a lot easier to look at and a lot easier to follow from our parent perspective and our community perspective. So all the dates and everything are right next to the actual month. And she, of course, decorated up with our more of our school colors, so on and so forth. So it actually looks a lot better. It's easier to understand. It's got a lot better flow to it. And it just makes more sense than trying to look at the old one. So anything else the committee wants to add? Anybody have any questions for them? As to
So I noticed there's a day off after the end of every quarter. Is that new? We don't do that now?
We have one at the end of each semester.
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 And we added 2 at the end of the first quarter and 1 at the end of the third quarter. So
Okay.
those are the new pieces.
Yeah, a big piece was kind of taking those days to not only allow teachers grading time and time to be productive in planning, but also having that time where it could be dedicated for half a day of professional development in order to get maybe starting in the morning of doing that to kind of have our most productive periods and not be rushed by the 2-hour time limit of an early release where students maybe aren't being picked up or something might be running late. We thought that would really maximize and put our teachers in a spot where they can learn.
Yeah, the key piece there is the learn. They can sit out in the morning when we're all fresh and get the information, and then have time to actually apply it to what we want to do with it. I mean, that's huge. And so often we go to a professional development and we do PD, and it's great PD, and then we forget to do. We just forget to do. It's like with the business of life and everything else going on, you just run out of time for the do. So this gives time for the do. You set up, plan. All right, let's implement. Seems to flow really well.
Yeah, and like they said, it was divided into 2 groups, and there was a pretty good consensus on, even before they met, as to how identical the thought processes were. If you look at the calendar, there isn't a long spring break, but there's actually a break there for people that need it. And then if you look at each month, there actually is that little bit of time in there, because we all know that January, February, March is a long period of time. And testing is typically in April. So the dynamics of how things were split up for people in our teaching staff, once again for the development, for the actual feeling like there is that little sense of break, I think worked out really well. And once again, the team did a great job. Chad was a part of that because obviously we bring athletics into this too if there's anything that's dire need from that standpoint. So we just had a lot of people involved, which was pretty dynamic. It took quite a bit of time and planning for that, so I want to thank all of them for their time and efforts that they actually put into that, because it took quite a bit of time. So, any questions for these folks? And like I said, we had about 18 people total in there, so. All right, well, thank you. Appreciate that. Chad, thank you. He's over there as well. Thank you, Mr. Ballman. Thank you for your time.
All right, now then principals, you guys have updates for us this time?
Yeah, thank you for letting us speak tonight. Lisa, Jeff, and I have kind of divided and conquered about some things we would like to speak of when it comes to K-6, K-8 programming. So I'll get started with a few highlights, things that we're working on right now, and then Lisa will kind of take over with a few other highlights to share. The first thing that we really wanted to prioritize now that we're a little past midway through in the year was really coming back from break and really revisiting being intentional. What is our purpose? How do we set the stage for learning? Students go into winter break and it's their biggest break of the year. And routines and procedures can be really difficult when we're talking about 5 and 12-year-olds or up to 14-year-olds when they're returning from break. This year we didn't get to have a full consistent week up until the end of January just due to Mother Nature and weather, and so that's taken a little bit more time than expected. But it's really nice to come back after break and talk to our teachers about what did we want to be intentional about at the beginning of the year. We've all been invested in talking about different professional development, different routines and procedures that you're going to do in your class to put students in a place where they can learn academically and social and emotionally to develop those friendships. And so that's been really good to revisit and get back to that purpose because it's kind of a natural teaching point in the year. Another thing Jeff, Lisa, and I have been really focused in on is looking at our middle school experience for kids and talking middle school experience from a 5th through 8th grade perspective. What can we be offering these students to help them grow in their independence, as well as understanding how to function as a team and be able to coexist when things aren't going well. And so a big thing that will be changing in Lonsdale is for 5th and 6th grade, we'll be moving more towards the teachers teaching one content area and really diving into the specifics and learning opportunities that they can provide and almost offering like version of middle school prior to when they get to our 7 and 8 building. And then once those students get there, I know Jeff, Lisa are kind of working on what some future coursework could look like for those students to really get them in their interest areas and really applying some of the things that they're learning in their core classes to some of the electives that they want to see. And so we're really excited about what that could offer. And the third thing that I'll be talking about is just some other good times to get families engaged and into our buildings. We have kindergarten roundup coming up in all of our buildings in February into early March. We're super excited with the enrollment numbers to send out to families to hopefully welcome them in and showcase our school and all the good things that are happening. And we also have conferences the first week and second week of March, and that's a great time for families to come in and be able to showcase from the beginning of the year to now midway through the year. Here's where your child's at, here are all the great things that we want to share with you, and also here's some good next steps to continue your child in growing as a learner, as a friend too.
All right, awesome. Building off of that, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about professional development and some of the things we've had going on recently. I just want to give a big shout out to the teachers. We did a little bit of a revamp this fall and dove into a process called a PDSA process. Teachers had the choice to also use this as their Q-Comp work, and most, if not all, did. And I know that as administrators, we've really been blown away by their work and their engagement with this process. So essentially, we've been focusing on getting students engaged through the first 5 and last 5 of lessons, which entails learning intentions, low stakes writing, and academic conversations. Those were kind of the 3 kind of pillar strategies that we were focusing on that maybe I've shared with you before. And so each month teachers are tasked with going through a PDSA cycle. So they're planning out, what do I want to learn about this month? What do I want to dive into? Then they do that, right? They do that with their students in their classrooms. Then they study those results. How did that work? What are my assessments showing? I'm reflecting on what I'm seeing in the classroom. And then I act based on what I've seen and make adjustments and things like that. And so once a month they come together in their instructional strategies groups, which are all mixed up, different age levels, different departments, and their conversations and their depth of work and their learning honestly has been inspiring. It's one of my favorite days of the month just to let them work together and talk together and share what they've been doing in their classrooms and the ideas that people are getting from each other. It's been really, really cool to see. So it's been a really fun process, and that implementation work is also directly tied with our AVID work, which is kind of cool. Sometimes we feel like they're separate things, but they're really the same things, which is just getting kids engaged, getting kids learning, and we might use different words, but it's all really the same work. Coming up, Joe Mischke, who is our kind of AVID guy that works with our school district, will be coming on the 28th of February to do a walkthrough and learn more about that from him. So Other professional development things coming up on Monday. We have an exciting day planned for staff, for teachers that day. They'll have a lot of time with grade alike or subject alike colleagues across the district that they just have so little time for in a school year. So I know people are looking forward to that together as a fourth grade team across the district or a science department or whatever it may be. And a good day with just a lot of time where they're going to focus on some of this work, some of the first five, last five stuff. They're going to have time to dig into these instructional playbooks that Dr. Bernard has created, and we're going to give teachers time to dig into those, and then also to touch base on other things that their department might need to do. We've been also looking ahead to next year and professional development, what our priorities are going to be. In K2, we're really going to be focusing on phonemic awareness. And if you've been paying attention to anything in kind of the early learning world, it's all about the science of reading. And so we've really taken that pretty seriously with the new information and the research that we're gathering and responding accordingly. So our K2 teachers next year will be really dialed into phonemic awareness, and we'll be using a curriculum called Haggerty, which is I'm really excited for. We already have some teachers that are diving into that work and seeing awesome results. And then next year, looking ahead, our 3-6 teachers will be diving more into writing and building off the low stakes writing, but even more than that, kind of into curricular areas and more genre writing and that kind of thing. So some exciting professional development things going on. Also wanted to mention that we've formed a district-wide MTSS team. So MTSS, which is just multi-tiered systems of support. What that really is if you think about a diamond, 80%, what we're doing core tier 1 with everybody should really be effective for 80% of our kids, if not more. And then the top and the bottom of the diamond are the kids excelling beyond that and the kids who have not yet mastered those concepts. And so really thinking about that as a district and how can we, what is it that we want students to learn and be able to do? How will we know if they've learned it? So what are our assessments that are telling us how are our kids doing? What are those assessments they're using? Are they working the way we want them to? Are they being given with fidelity? All of that kind of stuff. And then also, how are we going to respond if the students didn't learn what we were hoping that they learned? So what are the interventions we have in place? What are the resources we have in place? How are we responding to that? And then also for the students that sometimes get forgotten at the top of the diamond who've already demonstrated proficiency with those things, how are we also responding with those students as well who need just as much intervention, just in a different way? So that's exciting work that's just kind of begun, but a whole district-wide team that's going to be diving into that. One last positive is a upcoming 7th grade courage retreat. All the 7th graders across the district will be engaged in March at the Montgomery building in a courage retreat, an all-day retreat focused on leadership and courage and belonging. And I'm really excited about that experience for our 7th graders. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows, so just also wanted to take a moment to talk about the reality of some of the shortages that we are facing and how those are impacting us daily in little ways and big ways, just with really the shortage of staff and subs is continuing to be a huge barrier for us and for the work that we can do in our buildings. We have a few really dedicated subs and are so thankful for them, but are really having a hard time filling all the positions on any given day. I've had days in my building where I've had to cancel every single special because we are that many people short and there's nobody else to fill in. Obviously, these kind of things lead to burnout and frustration, right? And so I think it's important that we don't lose sight of that as a challenge right now. Long-term subs, we're not having people apply for those positions, and so, that leaves us in some sticky positions to figure out how we're going to creatively cover these things. None of it may be ideal. I know we'll work it out because we make it work and we work it out and that's what we do, but just wanting you to know that those things are challenging. Continuing to search for paras. We have unfilled para positions. And then these things just impact our buildings. We can't pull people out of classrooms to do curriculum work because there aren't subs to fill those positions. And like I said, just leaning to sometimes some negative morale and burnout from people, then kind of exacerbating the sub issue. So, that is broader than TCU. That's not only a TCU issue, that is an everywhere issue, but just remembering that that is certainly affecting us day to day in the work that we do in our buildings.
Nice. Good job, you two.
Thank you.
Welcome, board. From the high school standpoint, I want to give my congratulations first off to Queen Michaela Mark King Marco Reyes. They were crowned this afternoon as their Snow Week King and Queen. And so if it's not out on TCU Facebook and Twitter, it sure will be very soon. Also this morning, I opened up, actually last night, but I sent the blast out this morning, 2023-24 TCU High School course registration process is open for students to register for courses at this point. That's our current grades 9 through 11. The counselors will be working in the middle schoolers the next week to get our incoming freshmen signed up. So they don't have the opportunity yet. But students were kind of abuzz this afternoon with the crowning of the King and Queen and then being able to sign up for next year's courses. Last Thursday, we had a great turnout. We've got another roughly 155 to 160 group of incoming ninth graders into the high school next year. It's finally nice to say we have no COVID restrictions about social distancing and masking up and even sitting in the PAC with some gaps with your group of three. So we let any of the family members that wanted to come with show up, and we had small kids, we had grandpas and grandmas, but we had a lot of people in the PAC last Thursday. At that same time, we also had our first night of spring parent-teacher conferences. So we had current 9th through 12th grade parents wandering the building, stopping in and talking with teachers. And then when the teachers weren't conferencing, Mr. David Reese, assistant principal, was lining up tours for the incoming 8th graders with their parents. So we had a lot happening, which is great because, as you know, our on-site or our parent-teacher conferences, we average anywhere from that 20 to 30% range per grade level. So the last 3-4 years, we've tied in that 8th to 9th grade registration information night, which we moved down to one session from 7 to 8 o'clock this year. It really worked out well. Lots of smiles, lots of excitement. We also, for the second year in a row, we had we looked at our equity in the high school, and Mr. Peter Kerger, who teaches chemistry here, he actually did the counselor's presentation in the band room, all in Spanish. So him and Mary Vasquez, they had a few families where the home language is Spanish, and so they shared the counselor's presentation, and then they gave a tour with those families, also all in Spanish. It was well received last year. It was even better well received this year. It really worked out well. This Friday is mid-quarter 3 already, if you can believe it. Time is flying by. That puts us 1 quarter through the spring semester. The first 4 weeks are going by very quickly. Reminder, we have our second batch of personalized parent-teacher conferences a number of years ago. Due to the low spring on-site turnout for parents coming to conferences, we focus on, in the month of March, we'll focus on those students with the D's and the failures. And that happens roughly a week and a half before the quarter ends, so it gives that student, hopefully with that parent push, time to get the missing assignments in, the assessments taken, with the goal being at least a passing grade for that 3rd quarter. Teachers make phone calls right from their classrooms, and if they don't reach anybody, they will follow that up with an email message for those that are not doing quite as well as they could and should be. We did the AC online practice test back in December. Students got their results right away. That's the benefit of the online practice test. This Thursday, Gretchen Lilly, who's one of our counselors and in charge of the testing process from the counseling standpoint, she and I will be going into the 6 junior history sections to cover what those results mean. And we waited until after we had Jeremy Wiley here last Wednesday for our 2-hour out. He spoke for 1 hour and gave all kinds of free online resources. He's our local ACT test rep, and so he drove down from Eden Prairie to present to our high school staff and did an excellent job. And there's a lot out there for teachers in all the grade levels to work on test prep by embedding with the Minnesota standards right into the curriculum that we currently use. So that was a very positive last week as well. I want to give kudos to that man right there who had a bunch of us over to Lesueur County Emergency Management back on, I think it was a week and a half ago roughly. They invited 3 of the state people down. We had a good session over in the Law Enforcement Center for a few hours, but even better for us was that the 3 state people, Kevin and Tammy, they came over to the high school building to assist us with our G-Wing, which is still a very challenging place to have lockdowns in, because one of the focal points of that area was to have as much sunshine coming in, was to have as much glass, to have as much flexible space as we could. And so they gave us some good ideas, some different logo things that we could do on some of the glass spaces. We also, it's taken a decade, but we also got approval to no longer have to do severe weather and tornado sheltering in our hallways. We can use certain spaces, so I've put together a map, and Carl Mink will be working with IEA Institute something assessment. IEA. And what's that? Environmental, thank you. And so we'll be getting the new maps up, and hopefully those are here before our severe weather drills in the month of April. I do gotta share a funny story. Last week, Casey's, the gas station corporation, you can donate your rewards dollars to a school. And we had never received here at the high school a reward check. So I get this Casey's envelope and I open it up, and $1,700. And then I put my glasses on. $17.30 is what the total was.
Every little bit helps.
I was wishing big right there. Oh, geez, I'm just gonna throw these away. This is the time of year which, and Chad.
I was too. $700.
I know. I mean, it was kind of crazy.
It was.
Yeah. Chad knows this now. This is as the winter seasons are starting to wrap up, and we start kicking off our Parade of Champions through the hallways. Sarah Costello does a wonderful job with our drum corps. Many of you have seen these. You've seen them posted on Facebook and Twitter. Some of you have been here in person because you may have had a student who has been a part of a team. What we do is, you probably know, is those high school students that are heading off to a state competition because they've earned it. We will march them up through the building. It's just one of those fun things. We did it last fall. We had a Dante went off to cross country. We had Miss Smeezing, Alice Schmeezing went off to state swimming. I think those were the only 2 last fall. But I know we've got a robotics one's coming up. We've got a BPA one coming up. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a wrestling one, just because we've been doing extremely well there. We'll have to wait and see if any of our other groups meet that standard. But that's all starting to come forward here, early March and late Feb. This is Snow Week. You may have seen some fun dressed people. We've got the 5 undress-up days this week. We have the coronation, as I shared. We crowned our king and queen. We have our annual talent show this Friday at 12:30. If you're around, come on in. Right now we have 6 acts, so it's not going to be a real long one. I've been told a lot of the students are working more on the Tri-Fest, which will be coming up later on this spring. And we've got tomorrow down in the PAC, we've got 2 truths and a lie. You'll learn all kinds of stuff about the staff members, and the students will all get to vote, I believe, on their cell phones as to which is the lie and which are the truths. We've got table surfing on Thursday in the gym, and I'll leave that to your imagination as just what that might be. Don't worry, there's not a liability problem here.
Make a face.
We're good. We're good. Next week is FFA week, so we go from snow week to FFA week. And then we get back to kind of a normal week to finish off the month of February. That's what I have for you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you.
Thanks, guys.
Last update, Tony Johnson's birthday today, so
Aw.
everybody can wish him a happy birthday. And he spent it at the board meeting.
Happy birthday.
Turn
Yeah,
21,
no,
turn
we-
21 today.
That's
Have a
dedication
bir-
today.
Your
Thank you for
birthday,
coming.
birthday in
It's a
an
gold
elementary
star.
school is quite the day. I don't need any more happy birthdays.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Johnson, aren't you speaking, right?
Yes. You wanna bring it up? You got it.
It's underneath the superintendent link.
I know that, but we lose it when we go into that,
Yeah,
so
there's
how
not-
did you hit that button?
Right, that link.
Yep.
How did you do that? Then you can do this. Go ahead.
We good?
Yep.
All right, thank you, board, for letting me talk to you. I want to talk a little bit about my recommendation, and obviously I would need, board approval to finally make this jump, but, the proposal for us to move into the Big South Conference. It has been something that we've talked about for multiple years. The Big South athletic directors came and spoke to board members, coaches. Trevor and I actually went to a meeting down in Wyndham. So we went and listened to one of their meetings and talked to him about it. So this has been a quite the process, to be honest with you. I think 2 years ago when we voted, our coaches were unanimously not in favor of going. I sat in a board member and talked about it then, and the board was not in favor of it either. But I think more we've progressed into the last few years, I honestly believe it is the right place for us to be. I really do. So if, Marcia, if you'd go on to the third page. Yep, or Kevin, sorry.
That's okay.
This really is gonna give you an idea of where, when we talk about why we should be moving. Most of you know, swimming. We are the one team in the Minnesota River Conference with swimming. We, are one of two teams in the Minnesota River Conference with soccer. All the other teams in the conference combined to make one team versus us. Those are the only two teams in the conference. So we get into dance. It's us and Belle Plaine, and Sibley East goes to a different conference, but that's it. So we have a lot of sports that it's just us or very few others within our conference. If you look at the Big South, they've invited us multiple years. If you're going to get used to hearing 5 or 4 other schools. And when you see the E next to them, most of their sports, they do it east and west. So TCU, Waseca, St. Peter, New Ulm, and Fairmont. Those are going to be like the Fab Five. You're going to hear those together all the time. Most sports, it's east. When we're east, we add St. James and we add Blue Earth. When we're big, it's a Fab Five and we add Marshall and Worthington. So the 5 are always going to be together. Now, if you listened, you never heard me say Laverne. You never heard me say Jackson County Central or Pipestone. You never heard me say Wyndham. Weirdly enough, we play Wyndham in almost every sport anyway. So most of these teams on this list, we see. We play Marshall every single year in football. District football requires it. We will play them every year we have for the last 4 years or 6 years, we will for the next 10. So it is the normal. We always play St. Peter, we always play New Ulm, we always play Waseca. So not much is going to change. Our conference is going to switch, or our non-conference teams are going to be conference, and our conference teams are going to be our non-conference. Only thing that's going to happen is instead of us playing Sibley East twice, us playing Mayor Lutheran twice and Lester Prairie twice, we're going to be playing New Ulm twice, and we're going to be playing St. Peter twice and Waseca twice, those teams. Our non-conference, we will still see, I totally expect to see Belle Plaine in almost every sport. I think we'll see St. Sibley East and Norwood in almost every sport. If you're looking at the numbers that are on that list, as you see, our number is 486. Belle Plaine in our conference is 467, which they're just, if you kind of piece it together, Belle Plaine would be a typical good-sized school for us. The next in that the Minnesota River Conference, we go down to 330, and that is Sibley East. Then we go down to 300 with Le Sueur, and then the other ones are in the 160 and 150. So they drop down pretty drastically. If you look, the 150 and 160 would be the smallest of this 14-team conference. So QRF is the main thing. That is how seedings are figured out in high school sports. When you play some teams, if you play them at your class level, you automatically are going, win or lose, you're going to be judged how you do in that game. If you play a team up a class, you're automatically going to, it counts like a win because you're moving up a class. For anybody that followed QRF last year, our end of the season in football, we played Marshall and Waseca and Jordan. We lost, but we were still doing, and St. Peter, we were doing good because we kept playing bigger schools. That's also the reason you never hear me talk about TCU playing Northfield, Owatonna, Faribault, New Prague for the most part. We don't play any of them. They don't want to play us because we're smaller. They have to play down a class, which hurts them. So they won't do it. Now wrestling is one sport that you tend to see us wrestling against big schools and small schools because you just see so many people at tournaments. You're going to do that. But we don't play basketball, volleyball, any of those things against Northfield. Even when I call and ask, if they have an opening, they won't take us. They won't. They don't want to play down a class. So the problem is in our conference, the Minnesota River, as we're doing it, we play down a class all the time. As you know, we host a huge cross-country tournament here. We did middle of the road this year. When we got done with our cross-country tournament, Lake Crystal and Sibley East were far below us. They both qualified for the state cross-country meet as a team below us, and they were below us. But that just happens because we're in a different class. When we went to cross-country this year, Mr. Babcock, you went with me. We ran against Mankato East, Mankato West, Wilmer, Marshall, Waconia, Hutchinson. We don't see them all year long. So our kids run against Class A schools all year long. Then we go to tournaments and we run against AA schools. It's different. A bunch of you are sports people, you would know, but it is a big difference. We go to section track last year, Lakeville South, which some of you went to. But when we get there, we are seeing much bigger schools. Casson Manorville and Stewartville. Those are our cross-country, we see in a variety of our sports. Our girls just got done dancing against Casson Manorville, Stewartville, Byron, all of those. But during the season, we play against small schools. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. We have to work harder. We are going to have to work harder, and every coach is going to have to work harder because we are going to be playing bigger schools with probably better facilities in many cases, a little bit different schedules. Iron sharpens iron. You hear the phrase all the time. We're going to play St. Peter twice a year and Marshall twice a year, or Waseca twice a year, and Fairmont. We're not going to be used to it. It is going to be different. We might get punched in the face a little bit our first year or two. But that is who we're going to play in sections, and we need to start getting used to that. No offense to anybody, because most of the other schools are friends of mine. We should not be comparing ourselves to Lester Prairie. We really shouldn't. They're 148 and we are 486. That should never be a discussion for us. We shouldn't be, it would be like us comparing ourselves to Cleveland or my hometown of Nicollet, those kind of things. that shouldn't be people we discuss. That is not how I want to compare us to. I want to compare us to how are we doing against St. Peter, Waseca, Fairmont, New Ulm. That's our kind of our 5. And that's really where if our sports are ever going to get to where we want to be, we need to start playing them on a regular basis, in a regular routine. Now, I do understand travel is going to be a little bit different. I have to do a better job. I acknowledge that. And most sports are East and West. And like I've said that. So East and West, the 5 teams, we play almost every one of them right now. We just played Blue Earth in girls the other night. Our boys are playing them coming up here. All right, so we play them. Really the only thing that's going to be weird to everybody in this room is when you hear we're going to Worthington or we're going to Marshall, when they actually do the sports we do big and small. And when we do big and small, my vision, honest and truthfully, is when we have to go there, baseball and softball, they do big and small. I want to go to Worthington on a Friday night and then play in Marshall on Saturday afternoon. That is what I want to do. I don't want to have 2 long, massive trips twice a year during the school year.
I thought those were all gonna be opposite, Chad. That one year we'd play Worthington there, they would come here and we'd be going to Marshall that.
Possibly could.
It'd be
Yeah,
one long trip per
you're right,
year.
one
And
long trip.
Softball and baseball would be double headers.
Baseball would be double headers, correct. But I'm just saying, if we ever get to some of those things, if we ever have to go to Marshall and Worthington the same year, I would want to do those kind of things. All right? Wrestling, for example, every 14 years you will host a tournament. Wrestling will have a tournament every 14 years. It'll come to TCU. We won't ever get to host it because we can't put down 4 mats. But everybody rotates that. Track is another individual sport. Every 14 years it comes. We will host a conference track meet, but likewise we will go to Pipestone. So there are some sports that we will travel to Pipestone, travel to Laverne. They do them on a Saturday. It'll be a one Saturday when all 14 gets there. That's a pretty fantastic event when you can get a 14-team conference for a wrestling tournament, a cross-country tournament, a track meet. There'll be big events. All right? We also do in some of these sports, they do a showcase. We have played in the Big South girls basketball showcase last year. We played Windham in New Ulm. This year, we will play Jackson in Windham this Saturday. Next weekend, we will play the boys showcases in Waseca. I believe we're playing Pipestone, but they decide that the middle of next week. So those things rotate. Volleyball, boys basketball, girls basketball has a showcase event. It will rotate every 14 years. We will get our shot too. So some year we're going to go to Pipestone. It's on a Saturday. Some year we'll go to Laverne. Some year all of them are going to drive here. So those are done on Saturdays, so it's not a major inconvenience. But like I say, we will go to Windham on a Saturday, this Saturday, and play Jackson County Central, which is the East versus the West. If you're looking up there, as you see, we're on the East. Jackson County Central is one of the West teams.
Well, how come you just got us in this showcase? Normally it's just conference people in this showcase, and we're not right now.
They have 13 teams. So we played in the girls basketball last year already as the 14th, honorary 14th team.
Sure.
Now this year we're in boys and girls basketball. Next year we're going to be in girls basketball, boys basketball, and volleyball. And we won't be in the conference next year anyway. Because even if I go in, whenever you guys approve this, we have to sit out a whole year because I already have next year's football, volleyball schedule done. I have basketball, wrestling schedule already done for next year. So we're talking about the year after. So we're talking about 24, 25. So we're basically putting it out there. Our numbers, just in reaching out with the district office, our numbers, we are 486 this year. I think our number is going to be right around 484 next year. We're not changing. It is your enrollment, and they take your school enrollment is minus 40% of your free and reduced. Now one of the biggest problems is going to be for us in the future, now with free meals for every kid K through 12, which is it done now?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Halfway.
Halfway. Okay, if it goes, the only way your number gets reduced is to have people do those free and reduced numbers. Fill out that free and reduced form. If it doesn't, our numbers will skyrocket, which will put us in a different conference in many other sports, or section in other sports. If you notice in tennis this year, we played Lakeville South and Rochester Mayo in tennis. That is how it fit for us. So, we're a big enough school to be talking, depending on the sport, and I could go over each individual sport with you, but when you talk about this, when you're talking Rochester Mayo, when you're talking about Marshalls and Worthingtons, we played Worthington in playoff football multiple years in my 5 years here. This is the kind of things we're looking at. We are a bigger school in a conference that is kind of stretched over multiple classes. Okay, I will get to some questions for you in a minute. If you look here, these are just the fall activities that they offer. Most obviously the same type of things we do. If you see here on this one, swimming and diving, they do not offer it as a conference because their conference bylaws say you need to have 7 teams in a conference for it to count as a conference sport. The Minnesota River, you need to have 4. Well, we have 1. At least in theirs, we do go swim at Marshall every year. We go swim at St. Peter every year. So this is going to benefit us to have some more conference opponents, but there is not 7 to have a full conference. So if you see that, go ahead.
What number will we be at if we join?
We will be, I believe, the 4th or 5th.
Okay.
I don't know for sure on that. Going into the winter, if you look across here, Big South has gymnastics. We do not. Obviously, we have boys and girls hockey. That is part of our co-op with the Minnesota River Bulldogs. Another sport that is on here is dance. Again, there's not 7, I believe. There are 6. We would be the 6th. So there would still be 1 short of having a 7th team for it to be an official conference sport. And then you get into the spring. Obviously, the one sport they have, and they have asked if we would be interested in starting boys tennis if we join, because that is one thing they are looking at, trying to find another team that is willing to have that to try to get their numbers up in that. So, but relatively speaking, all the things we have, we are given many more opportunities within that conference. If you turn to that next page there, this is kind of where it talks about the sports that go east and west, the ones that go big and small, some of them that are together, and then some that are hybrid. This year they started a hybrid for basketball, which is kind of weird. They broke it up into 3 different parts. So you play a home and away against the people in your third, and then you play one other pod. You only play them once. So it's kind of 1.5 times, if that makes sense. I understand it if you guys don't, but that's okay. But this is, yeah, it's basketball. But with that being said, this is year 1 of it. If we go in, it would be an even 14, and it is by no means a vote, but there is discussion that they'll probably go back to an east and west, because it seems like it's the right thing when they have a balanced conference, 7 and 7 on each side. I just typed up on the next page here is just kind of a sample schedule, because I know people are relatively curious about what we're going to gain and what we're going to lose if we decide to join into this conference. If you look with a basketball schedule with the 26 games, we're going to play through the traditional home and away versus multiple teams. Our non-conference schedule, like I said, is going to look like Sibley East, Belle Plaine, Norwood, Le Sueur, New Richland, St. Clair, Lake Crystal. Now Lake Crystal, New Richland, St. Clair, New Richland, and Lake Crystal are all AA schools, the same as us. So we would keep them on. We would have some. Le Sueur is going to be smaller. I'm honest with you, they're just smaller than us, but it is, I'm not gonna say we're never gonna play anybody smaller, but it makes sense for us to play them when they're right next door. And there's, in reality, we combine with them in a variety of sports. They bring their swimmers here, they got dance line that comes here. We're co-opted in soccer, we have a good relationship with them. I don't intend on shutting the door with them and not ever playing them in anything. Volleyball is gonna be very different. With 7 teams and you're playing your east side 2 games apiece, that turns out to be 12 games. That leaves us 5 extras. We host a tournament, which all of you know, we always go to the Waterville tournament. We'll win a big South showcase. That there already takes us to 15. So we will have 2 basically random extra games, probably the likes of Sibley East or Belle Plaine or Jordan, those kind of teams. We probably will never have a volleyball game against Lester Prairie ever again. So unfortunately, that's just one of those that just would be no reason for us to do that. Baseball, softball, again, home and away. When you have your 2 games, like I say, sometimes they'll put a doubleheader on one of them, especially for softballs we talked about, not baseballs, yep. But when we do that, our non-conference is gonna look like Lake Crystal, New Richland, St. Clair, Jordan, Belle Plaine, Sibley East, and Norwood. Now, Basur is a very good team. When you get into softball, then they're in the same class. So depending on a sport, some of them are gonna be the same. So you're gonna see times where we're gonna see some of the same schools. I know not all of you totally understand it, and if you really wanna come in and sit, I'll gladly pull out numbers and show you. But some sports we have 7 classes, some sports we have 4. In tennis, we were the 2nd smallest AA school in the state. The 2nd smallest, which that explains why there's only 2 classes. We were the 2nd smallest. That's why we play Rochester Mayo. Now that was without us even taking Cleveland's numbers. Because as you know, we co-op in Cleveland, but it didn't, just our numbers alone. Belle Plaine was the biggest Class A, we were the smallest AA. Okay, when we get into dance, same thing. That's why we went and danced against some good-sized schools, but we are in the small class. The small class goes as high as Cass and Manorville and Byron and Stewartville, much bigger schools than us. But that is where it sits, just on that. Wrestling has 3 classes, and like I say, you can go through all the sports. Some are 2, some are 3, some are 4, some are 7. So we are in a variety of different sections. I go to section 1 region meetings, I go to section 2 region meetings. We are administratively in 2, but we're in, when we talk about subsections, we're in 4 different subsections, 2 different sections. So we move around a lot. We play anywhere from the South Dakota border to the Wisconsin border. Okay, I said a lot. Anybody have anything that I can answer for you on conference, understanding it?
Will you speak on how your coaches voted recently?
When we had the meeting here, actually, what would have probably been maybe 2 months ago, I have 0 coaches that voted against it. Not all of them voted, and as you know, some of them are in transition from, our volleyball coach is no longer with us. When we had that meeting, we have some people that were off-site, so they did not vote. But, Kevin, you were there, Trevor, you were, Marcia, did you? I can't remember who came.
I wasn't there.
But baseball was there, track and cross country were there, wrestling was there, basketballs were there. Again, our volleyball was not. Our tennis, does not teach in a district, so we weren't. Our one-act play was there, and they do a lot of one-act play festivals and speech things. We are We're gonna be in a very big conference. They have, again, kind of like an individual sport, they will have a one-act play festival, much like we do in the Minnesota River Conference with, smaller numbers. Now we'll go to a one-act play festival with 14 other schools, or 13 other schools, so it's a pretty big event. So, overall, again, I did ask the coaches when they had an opinion to ask or to give me a vote, and I did not have any one of our coaches that told me they did not want to go.
That's so
I will say
encouraging.
not all of them told me they did want to go, and again, some of them, they didn't have any information because they couldn't attend any of the meetings, so they did not vote. But I would say we're probably at 12-0 in favor this time compared to 0-14, I
I was
think,
gonna say,
last
last time they did not.
It was, actually, wrestling was the only sport that voted in favor of it 2 years ago when they did it.
It makes sense when you're trying to create rivalries. When you're bouncing all over the place versus being a part of schools that we're already playing anyway.
Right.
Being new here, the schools that he's mentioning, we keep playing those schools that are in this conference.
Yep.
All right, so I think like Wasika said in that first meeting is that we, maybe come up with some trophy between, the highway right there, right? So they already want to create some of those, those competitions that mean something down the road. So it was pretty unique just to listen to the coaches and the ADs that were in there.
I'm just encouraged that the staff or the coaches were pretty unanimous about that. So that's really good news.
Well, I do, a couple of things that just, that I think since we started talking about it that changed philosophies a little bit or changed people's opinions is when you start playing in sections and you realize you're being seated below teams that you beat, and that's happened. We are getting seated below teams that we beat, and it's irritating when you know that, and it's because we don't generate enough QRF, and some of that hurts. And total openness, when we went to cross country this year, I think our coaches really expected big things out of a couple of our kids, and when we got there, we ran against kids we have never ran against, and they had, to be honest, they didn't know how to run against them. They're used to a pace, but when you run against the same conference schools so many times and some of those things, they're different. And to be honest with you, we are going to do some things different that by joining some of these bigger schools, they have to think outside the box. They do things a little bit different than we are. Big 9 runs on Wednesdays. Next year on the 3rd or 4th Wednesday in September, we're running against Mankato East and Mankato West because we never get to see them. So we're going on a Wednesday to go and run against them. And those things are getting to be more and more common all the time. Officials are hard to find. If you follow Minnesota State High School League, they're constantly tweeting about games being canceled and people driving from extreme distances to come and make a game happen, and ADs and schools paying crazy amounts to get people to come to officiate a game because they can't find them. So people are playing on Saturday morning so those officials can go do another game Saturday night, or they're playing on Wednesdays now, and they're wrestling on Mondays, which people hate because the kids they chow down all weekend and they don't like to make weight on a Monday, but you have to now because there's a shortage there. And so weird things are happening, and distance is a little bit of an issue for us. We're not going to travel to St. James and then the next day travel to Blue Earth. I have to do better with our scheduling of each sport. So that is going to be a little bit different. It's never been a problem here to go to Sibley East one day and then go to Belle Plaine the next day and have 2 road games in a row. But it is going to be different in this conference because travel is going to be different.
Chad, that was one of my questions is, when you said you had to do a better job, are you saying just spacing it out more?
Not necessarily spacing it out, but if we play like specifically if we go to I don't consider New Ulm, New Ulm is an hour, Wasika, St. Peter, they're not that, I mean, they're not bad distances. Those teams can play here on a Tuesday. But I will like Tuesdays. Tuesdays will be a more common night for us to play because we won't have a game on Wednesday for the most part. But if we go to St. James and Blue Earth, we will not be on the road the next day. I can't do it because our kids can't. We're gonna come back late, and they need to be in school first hour to practice that next day or be in a game next day. If we would go to St. James and play a home game the next day, it wouldn't be as dramatic. But I sure can't turn around and have another away game back to back. Not when they're Blue Earth and Fairmont and St. James. And to be honest with you, all of these ADs in this conference, they talk about the same things. They realize we are an extreme. Fairmont and Redwood Falls and New Ulm and some of they're kind of in the middle. They don't have to deal with, they're not in that position that we are.
We kind of bookend.
But we are, us and Waseca. To be honest with you, Waseca has looked for multiple times. They have looked at leaving this conference because they're on the extreme and there wasn't other people out here, so it's kind of like they were sitting on an island. So now for us to get to St. Peter, us to get to Redwood, we're kind of in the same, so we benefit them. And to be honest with you, right now we're at 14. If we go this, we would be 14. The big vision is 16 at some point. So we would have 2 8s. Don't know who those would be. It really isn't. They want to get to an even number, and then I don't think they would ever take 1 anymore. They would take 2 at the same time. But for the current time, it would be nice to have a balanced 14.
How would it impact hockey? Hockey?
That's our conference already.
Okay.
So we play in
This
that
one we're in.
conference.
Oh,
We're already in this
okay.
conference for
Alright.
hockey.
So
Yep.
now you got him. Okay.
Yeah. So the Minnesota River plays against, which we just played Laverne on Friday, and Worthington. We play every one of these. So that is our conference already.
Yeah, it's the only one that won't change, really.
Yeah.
And football, because football doesn't go by conferences.
And district,
So
yeah.
football and hockey,
Yep.
boys and girls hockey.
So Jan, we're talking the distances, how are we looking at for transportation? I mean, as far as finding drivers, cost? I mean, increase
Well,
in
there's
cost.
no doubt. There's no doubt the cost is going to be different because we are going to go up because our driving distance is going to increase. They're going to see things also very different. The Big South Conference plays 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 7:15 all the time. So when we have teams coming here, we will start playing C squad at the middle school at 6 o'clock, B squad at the high school at 6 o'clock. We'll be playing 6 o'clock both games, then 17. We won't stack them because I don't want to get our kids out of school early to get to Fairmont or Blue Earth for a 4:15 game no more than they want to get their kids out early. So everybody leaves after school, you get in and you play your 2 6 o'clock games at the same time. 4:15 is going to be a thing of the past, except for maybe when we play, say we play someone smaller, maybe it's LeSueur, or maybe it's Sibley East that can't play B and C at the same time. I'm not saying it might be us. It doesn't mean because we go to this, that doesn't mean we're going to be exempt from that. But travel cost is going to increase. I'm not going to deny that. It's just further.
When I think you look at, you talk about, officials and stuff like that, hard to find people. Bus drivers have the same problem. So I guess my other concern is Palmer going to be able to oblige?
Well, I will tell you one thing. I can't speak for any other place, any other school. Palmer's been amazing for us. We have never once in my 5 years not been able to go because of a bus. Never one time. And to be honest with you, we have gone and picked up teams that couldn't find a bus driver and got their teams and brought them here. So Palmer has been, I know that seems weird, but they have gone and picked up our opponents and brought them here so we could play a game. So I can't say enough about Palmer, and I have no reason to believe they can't because we haven't had that problem in 5 years. Never once.
Speaking on the dollar amount, I can't imagine that it's gonna be that significant. I mean, it probably should get looked into, but almost all these teams are on all of the schedules already. Basketball's played all of these teams, and like I said, they were just
Yep.
in Wyndham 2-3 weeks ago, which they wouldn't normally play if they were in the conference.
Right.
So, and then the non-conference games are gonna be the close ones. So it will go up. I mean, it kinda has to, because there's gonna be a little bit more games farther away. But in the end, it can't be that significant, because we already drive to a lot of these places the way it is.
And I do think the philosophy of 2 games at 6 o'clock is gonna be different, because now we will not be leaving at 2 o'clock during the day to get somewhere. We will be leaving after school and playing 2 games at 6, so our time at that location is gonna be shorter too. So as much as
So
we're
that
going
will
to.
save money is what you're getting at.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it is, yes, we're gonna, currently, we are used to playing 4:15, 6 and 17, now we're gonna be playing, so we're gonna save an hour and a half that way. So yeah, we're gonna be driving further, but we're gonna be playing in a different format.
Ted, what about middle school? I know.
Middle school will not be driving to these, our middle school will stay with LeSueur and everybody close.
Really well.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
7th and 8th will not change.
Okay. Do you mind if I just have one more question? Sorry. I'll
Nope,
stop.
ask as many as you want.
And this may be a question you're not able to answer right now, but what's the alternative? So say it's not approved, what do you project into just realistic? What
Sure.
do you see happening?
Well, to be honest with you, the musical chairs, I didn't want to be the school last standing without a conference.
Mhm.
We are in a conference of 7 schools now. In probably 7 years ago, this conference included Watertown Mayor, Holy Family, Jordan, Southwest Christian, all of which would be our class, all of which have left because the conference is too small. They don't want to keep doing what we're doing. So they don't. So what's happening is the bigs are leaving. If those 2 or 3 of those would be here, I wouldn't be looking at leaving. But we have asked for 2 years. We've asked St. Peter, Waseca. We've asked Jordan to come back. We've asked all those schools. They will not come back into our conference. So I'm saying, instead of us sitting in a conference of playing all the small schools and everybody leaving, Belle Plaine has been asked to leave multiple times in the past few years. We've been asked to leave. LeSueur, Sibley East, Norwood have been asked to join other conferences in the past because we're 7 and we're a conference of single A, double A, wide spectrum. If any one of us goes, it is going to be big. And I've been very upfront and honest with them for multiple times. My last meeting, I said, I am presenting here. I said, I believe our board will support our decision. I'm not sure. I believe Belle Plaine is going to leave if we leave. And I know there's other teams in the conference that are already looking. There's other teams that are having meetings as we speak with other conferences because of the situation of our conference. It's hard, and I like Lester Prairie and I like Mayor. They have good ADs and good programs. It is not helping us to play them. It doesn't kill us to play LeSueur and Norwood and Sibley East because some sports are at our level, some they're not. I mean, as far as section opponents. So they don't hurt us as bad. The other 2 are very small, like we talked about in the numbers. So we could stay. It doesn't mean you could tell me no, and I could go back to MRC and say we're staying. It doesn't mean Belle Plaine isn't going to leave, and if Belle Plaine leaves, we are in a world of hurt. We really are. Or if Norwood and Sibley East decide, LeSueur's been offered to go other camp. If any one of them go, it is going to be a massive.
What if Belle
It's
Plaine
gonna topple.
What if Belle Plaine went to the Big South?
What's that?
If Belle Plaine went to the Big South, We'd be in big
I,
trouble.
I don't
We
get.
wouldn't have anywhere to go.
Oh, if they took
and
that
Bell's
spot,
line
we
left,
wouldn't
yeah.
have anywhere to go, yeah. But, yeah, you're right, I don't know what, well, we have been invited to the Hiawatha Conference, which Hiawatha Conference would be Casson Manorville, Byron, Lake City, Red Wing, so we would go all the way to the Wisconsin border. That is, again, when you look at numbers, that is our size, that is our section. Those are teams we see in section tournament all the time. It has gone an extreme different direction than we traditionally go, and that would rip apart our whole schedule because we don't generally see any of them. So even though they asked, I didn't feel like it was the best move for us.
So in other words, to answer your question, we'd be staying in the conference we're currently in and hoping for the best.
Anybody else have anything I can answer? Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time for that, Chad.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Chet. Are we voting on that tonight?
I don't think
When are you
so.
looking at bringing it back?
We're bringing it back?
Probably next month. I thought we were gonna do that on there.
Put on the work session schedule.
We'll have to have a special meeting before that, though.
We don't have work session?
A special meeting before the work session, so we can vote it in. Or
We'll
vote.
discuss that at the work session.
Or discuss it then, and
If
then
we
bring
want
it
to
back next
discuss
month.
that, we'll-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should get hold of that for you.
Yeah. Okay, you're up.
So I'll be quick. So, just a couple things. First thing I want to just put out there that TCU wants to be mindfully put out there, I guess, with the St. Paul Harding student that was stabbed to death per se. So I just want to throw out there that we want to throw our condolences to the St. Paul School District and what's going on there. And I did respond out to the St. Paul School District as well with a little note. So just want to make that aware that we are supportive of other schools within our state when something serious goes array. We did have the meeting that Alan talked about with Kevin, led that. And we are always continually to talk about safety in our buildings. I'll be talking to the principals again this week, just reminding them all the time to tell the staffs to be out and about. That's usually the biggest piece, is to have proximity, listen, learn, and really follow through with what you are hearing and seeing. And of course, making sure doors are locked, so on and so forth. With that being said, is people can still figure out ways to get in. But we need to continue to practice. We need to continue to be mindfully receptive of what is going on. We can't take things lightly. So I want to put that out there that if people are listening to this and watching, that we are always driving safety as our number one goal within our buildings. And we had a really good session with the county and looking at some different things that we need to do to actually move forward here. Some languages and just how we're going to do things as times change, because things do change. So we will be doing that. If you heard through the principals and even like Chad in all of our areas, you can hear there's a lot of collaboration that's taking place, more so than maybe you've heard in a very long time. Just that mind focus and that intentfulness of really working together as a district to promote what it is that our kids need to once again get up to this high school level, and to make sure that our students between all three of our communities and those schools are getting the same education, no matter where they're from or how we're doing it, but that we are mindfully getting our students to that high school in the same capacity. You heard the middle school come up again. We are looking at that very heavily because that is a big area. We're a unique setting where we have two middle schools and two elementaries within two middle schools within two elementary schools. I almost said that wrong, but so looking at how we can bridge those disparities and those gaps between those two schools, so we can get our students the hands-on benefits of getting ready for career college focus, and we are having more and more conversations on that, which led me to we've had Somebody from Tina Smith's office and a few people from Amy Klobuchar's office come to the school here to just talk about schools and what's going on right now with just anything in general with shortages, the funding, so on and so forth. So we've been very fortunate to have them come here so that they can walk around and take tours to the point where I've actually just been invited to possibly go to down to the Capitol to talk a little bit more about what we have here as TCU, especially the size of our school, as we kind of sit in that middle area of we're not big, we're not small, but there's needs that schools our size have. And coming from a perspective of just coming from small schools, I want to advocate more for schools our size so that our students have opportunities. Because oftentimes larger schools have opportunities, and it's not the kids' fault, it's where the kids are from, it's what we have to offer. So I'm going to be looking at more advocating and talking with politicians, having more come in. I do believe we have another person set up to come in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to have as many politicians come and join us and have some conversations. So when they get to the Capitol Hill and they're talking to their main people, they can start having those conversations. We actually had one person actually say that they will be using us kind of as their kind of conversation platform. So if they need some questions, they'll contact us just to find out what we're thinking, which is really unique and really cool. So really excited about that. And then I'll finish with we have decided to continue with moving ahead with really putting us out there. So we are moving ahead with a new website for July 1st. It's a website, so some of the same features and so on, but it'll allow us to have our staff and our district be able to promote us and be able to put things on there in a simple way and really just get us going in a direction that we just need to continue to grow. And that'll communicate much better with our social medias, and we'll just have people be able to be more in tune and more in touch with TCU as a district as a whole. So really excited about that and just that continued effort of making kids understand that they are part of a great school district, making our communities understand that they are part, their kids, grandkids, whatever, are part of something that's really special within each of our 3 communities. But we need to keep promoting that. So really excited to be getting that started. We have about 4 months to do the migration and really get it to where we want it. We're going to keep it fairly simple. At the same time, is people that look at our website, which are a lot of usually families that want to find a district to go to, that they can navigate around it really easily and then determine that TCU just really quickly is that place where they want to be. So we're going to be very intentful on how we actually do that. And then last thing that kind of goes with that, we actually have a class here at school. It's a digital class through Kerry Langer. His office is right there. But actually are going to be creating a video for our district. So it'll be an informational session about our district. So they're going to be interviewing and going to our buildings and doing really a promotional piece to and cover our district. And then at that time, we'll be able to also include that with our webpage. So really excited that our kids are going to be getting involved. That's what I want more of, is for our kids to produce things and really incorporate what they're learning into showing our communities and the public that we are actually showing them and teaching them what it is that we say we are doing. So really excited about that as well. So.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right, next up, seek a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll approve.
I'll second.
A motion by Kevin Huber, second by Trevor Hone to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed 7-0. Next up, we have our consent agenda. We have approval of our minutes of our January 9th, 2023 regular school board meeting. Under personnel, we have appointment ending. We have John Head, robotics advisor, John Head, assistant BPA advisor, Connie Gawarik, paraprofessional, Andrew Meyer, spring weight room supervisor, and Kelly Jo Klosser, head softball coach. Under new hires, we have Katie Keogh, head volleyball coach, Missy Tice, part-time kids zone supervisor, Kyle Kruger, golf co-head coach for girls, John Carl, a golf co-head coach for boys, Sean Timmerman, assistant golf coach, Jill Gangle, an 8th grade boys basketball coach, Caitlin Ellingsworth, paraprofessional, Melanie Schmidt, Little Titans ECFE para, home visitor, Justin Learfeld, a head softball coach, Andrew Meyer, junior high boys track coach. We have leave of absence of Lisa Nolan, Approval in the bills of the amount of $4,301,459.33. And the finance report. I'll seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Chris, was that you?
Yes.
Who put you guys on the same side? Motion by Chris Vlasic, second by Hillary Birdsell to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion has carried 7-0. Next, we have our open forum, and it looks like we do not have anyone here to speak this evening. So we'll move on to informational items, and first up is our communications marketing position.
Okay, that's not on there. So, looking at, as most of you are aware, to do a full-time marketing communications person for the district, as we continue to stay stable with our size and promoting the district, like I talked about before, having that person be that spokesperson, that person to really promote what TCU is about, going into classrooms, to doing the community ed book, to really putting us on a platform of this is where people want to be. In order to do that, we need someone that really is going to work across the entire entity of the district and to really make that happen. Right now, we have a part-time person, which actually we are doing even some overtime within that position, which just tells you the interest and the need for us to potentially have a full-time person. We have had one in the past. And through some different dynamics that went away and we shared a person, we're back to having just a half-time person. But just my insight and my mindfulness of watching where we're at right now, having someone that can really promote the district so that we can start growing who we are, and having someone just really to focus in that area versus trying to nickel and dime people to put things here, put things there. Keeping our social media up to date. We're a few social medias that we don't even have, TikToks, Instagrams, and so on. Somebody needs to govern that, and look at that, and run that, and mainstream things in. It takes a lot of time and effort to really, when you're looking at going across 4 different buildings, 3 different communities, to really work with the community, work with the cities, work with all of our teaching staffs, our admin staff, working with community ed. Is really a daunting task, but we really need to really promote what it is that we have. Chad does a good job with getting as much as he can on the athletic side, but we have really significant, some great things happening within our academics side that we just need to promote. So I'm just putting out there that we should look at doing a full-time marketing and communications person. And as far as salary and some other details that can be determined after. We'll be meeting later on about that as future goes on as to what that may look like as far as when the hire, if it may happen, and then when that person may or may not start. So that's just some things going forward with full-time communications marketing director.
And we did discuss this tonight at our finance committee meeting too, so everyone knows.
When would you like someone to start? Is this for next school year, Chad, or would this be something more immediate?
Kevin, Chad's over there, but.
Same haircuts.
Well, that's why we met. That's why we met, just to discuss as to when we may potentially want that to start. We are leading into potentially some more branding. We're leading into the summer community ed book coming up. We are looking at a new webpage. We need to add on a few social medias to get things going. So it's still to be determined, but probably a little sooner than later would be recommended. As I would like to have more time myself, just to be able to go to the schools, to be able to get into classrooms more. I'm doing a lot of time right now with the branding and doing a lot of things, which is fine because it gets me to learn more about what it is that we need to build this center capacity of being the best district. But it'd be nice to have somebody that can really just drive that, and then I could just be a person that helps them, benefit from that. So.
Time. Any other questions? No? Okay, enrollment update?
I'll put that up there. Enrollment, we are down a few. Some of those have gone to online, and a few have left the district. So most of those have gone to online. If I can blow it up a little bit more. There we go. So we could see 1855 to 1841, so it's about 14 students less over the course of January 9th to where we're at now, February 14th. So about a month is where we're at with enrollment.
Committee updates, insurance.
Did we meet? Did someone meet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, calendar, we've already.
We did meet.
Did
I
you?
don't think there was a board rep there. We met on January 16th.
So, I know, so I am on the committee, but, I didn't have the date, so,
Okay,
so.
I'll double check that you're on the invitation.
Yeah.
Great. Nope, we met on January 16th. It's ahead of it here.
Perfect, okay.
Right here.
Thanks, Jean. Yeah, can you double check and make sure that we get Cindy on that? Calendar, I think we've already had that update, yes?
Yes.
Okay. I'll move to new business. It looks like we have a resolution. Chris?
Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District number 2905 accepts with appreciation the following gifts or donations and permits their use as designated by donors. Police Center American Legion for the Angel Fund, $200. Stephen Electric for the Angel Fund, $100. Anonymous for the Angel Fund, $200. Montgomery American Legion for Montgomery PBIS program, $250. Lee Center American Legion for the Lee Center Kindergarten Robes, $400. Lee Summit County Sheriff's Youth Project, winter gear for student needs, $1,500. Anonymous for the Angel Fund, $100. Various donors for the TCU Special Olympics, $1,480. Mark Thalman, 2 digital cameras for the high school, $150. And Montgomery Knights of Columbus for the Montgomery PBIS program, $1,500.
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I have a resolution for donations introduced by Chris Vlasic, second by Kevin Huber. This will be a roll call vote. Cindy?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Marcia's a yes. Kevin?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
And Chris?
Yes.
Resolution has passed by roll call vote. Do you have a copy of the resolution, or do you need it
No,
for
I'll
this one?
sign it when I'm done.
Or you have, or you don't have it to
No.
read off of?
Oh, I'm sorry, I got the
That's
digital
okay.
version. Thank you.
I just didn't know if you had it or not.
You wanna talk about this first, before I read it?
No, you can go ahead.
Nope, just go ahead.
Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 2905 as follows, that the school board hereby directs the superintendent of schools and the administration to consider the reduction and/or discontinuance of programs or positions to accomplish economies in the school district as a result of reductions in enrollment and/or funding, to make recommendations to the school board for the discontinuance of programs, curtailment of programs, discontinuance of positions, or curtailment of positions.
All right, I need a second.
I'll second.
All right, I have introduction of Chris Vlasic, second by Josh Belkey, for the resolution directing the administration to make recommendations regarding programming and staffing for the 23-24 school year. This will be a roll call vote. Cindy?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Marcia's a yes. Kevin?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
And Chris?
Yes.
Resolution has passed by roll call vote 7-0. Next up is our approval of our spring coaches for the 22-23. I don't know if there's any questions. This is something we do every season, I guess,
Mhm.
before the season starts.
Yeah.
Something new that we started doing. If there's any questions,
They're all full?
it looks like one.
It's up junior high track.
We didn't, we just hired?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's been
it's on the other
filled.
side?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make a
Looks like we're-
motion.
Okay, thanks. Is that Chris?
Yep.
Motion by Trevor Holland, second by Chris Vlasic to approve the 22-23 spring coaches. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed 7-0. Next up, we have the Southern Minnesota Initiative Fund in partnership with DEED Child Care Economic Development Grant, an amount of $20,000.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Oh my God, you guys. I have a motion by Josh Belkey, second by Chris Vlasak, to accept the grant from the Southern Minnesota Initiative Fund in partnership with Deed Childcare Economic Development in the amount of $20,000. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed, 7-0. Next we have our 23-24 school calendar.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Kevin Huber, second by Fleachek. I just kind of wrote it wrong. To approve the 23-24 school calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed, 7-0. Next, we have our communications marketing director position. So this would be adding a full-time communications and marketing director position. I would seek a motion for that.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Chris Valesek, second by Cindy Fleachek, to approve adding a full-time communications marketing director position. Is there any other questions or concerns we have before that? Okay, all those in,
Yeah, I do have a question. Jean's ran all the numbers, completely fine.
It's always, this is an ad, so this will have a budget impact. I think Kevin made some good points about needing to advertise all the good things that we're doing at TCU for future growth. So it's an area where I think I would encourage us to think about like the investment
right.
that we're making in the future of TCU. It's gonna be a qualitative. This isn't a position where you're gonna see, because this position's implemented, there's X amount of dollars that would come into the future. But there's a qualitative factor of better communicating, having a more holistic method to communicate the things that we offer here, and entice new families to join and be safe.
Well, it's telling our story and making sure that we have the expectations set so that these people are at events and different things that are happening within our
Good way
communities.
to tell
Yep.
our story.
Yep.
We need to tell our story.
Exactly, and we need to do a better job of doing
Yeah.
that. But we did talk about that at our finance committee
It's an ad.
tonight too. Yep,
Yeah.
it's an ad. Jean's always gonna tell you it's an ad.
I'll make a motion.
Well, we already have a motion
Oh,
on the
let's
table.
vote then.
So I just need, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed, 7-0. Next would be the job description, so I would seek a motion to approve the job description.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Kevin Huber, second by Trevor Hone, to approve the communications marketing director job description. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed, 7-0.
Before we adjourn, can I just take a second? I'd like to thank and recognize Connie Kabor for 32 years of dedication to the district, for supporting our community and our students. So, well done.
Good job, Connie. All right,
Thanks, Evan.
that was nice. I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Chris Vlasic, second by Cindy Fleachek, to adjourn the meeting at 7:34 PM. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed, 7-0. Meeting is adjourned.